Hey, it's me, Vicky Marie. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in this crazy world we're living in. Kasey Anderson, who was brutally murdered by his partner, even though, she was a lot older than him, double his age. And she was the one that was abusing him in their relationship. And the reason I decided as well to do this case is so often I talk about domestic violence that results in murder maybe, or breakup violence, all these kind of things committed against women. And because it is rarer, but not non-existent, it's rarer for it to domestic violence to apply to a situation where the woman is the abuser. But it does happen, and probably does happen more often than we think, but it doesn't get the same attention. And this young man, he was a victim of domestic violence for quite a long time, for quite a few years, and it culminated in his death. And so I wanted to talk about him because, as I say, it's rare. And there'll be lots of men out there maybe who are experiencing domestic violence. It's sort of worse for a man in a way because there's, they're embarrassed to talk about. I mean, women are embarrassed to talk about it too, I know, but not for the same reasons. For a man, it's embarrassing, isn't it, to admit that a woman is abusing him? It feels like it makes him less of a man. Or, and it's difficult for any domestic abuse victim to talk about what's happening to them. It's difficult for any of them, but I think it is especially difficult for a man. Certainly to talk amongst his friends. Women will, what's up with you? What are you crying? This is the dog crying in the back. What's the matter? I'm not giving her any attention, obviously. You're right, she's lying down now. So this is Kasey Anderson. We're going to watch his family talking about him. He was a typical young lad when he was in his teens, dancing, doing daft videos on to put onto his social media, etc. Happy, laughing. You can see he's got a lovely smile. And this, he lived in Croxteth in Liverpool. Now, I think most people, wherever they live in this crazy world, know about Liverpool because of being the home of the Beatles, etc. And where he lived, let's just have a look. Croxteth. Now, a lot of people might have heard of Croxteth because there were riots there, weren't there, years ago? But maybe you don't know about Croxteth. Let's have a look. Let's get a bit more information about Croxteth. I need to take that down so we can see it. So Croxteth is a suburb of Liverpool, Merseyside. Here's your location as far as the UK is concerned. Up here, right on the coast, really, more or less, isn't it? Yeah. So that is where we're going, to the Merseyside, to Croxteth suburb. It's been redeveloped. So, yeah, that's where this boy lived with his family. And it seems like he was a happy boy. And then, of course, he met an older woman. This woman, Natalie Bennett. And she was now, you know, these days, I don't think there are sort of age limits to relationships, are they? The same as there used to be. You know, years ago, it would have been rare, unless it was a man. You know, older men quite often went out with younger women, but you didn't really hear about older women going out with younger men. I do think that has changed now. I do think that is different. And I don't think it's a bad thing. You know, our age is just a number. But having said that, this is a massive age difference. I mean, you talk about 20 odd years, not talk about 5-year age difference, 10-year, or even 15 years, or even 20 years. You know, this is a massive age difference between Natalie and Kasey. So he was just 18, I think, when he first started seeing Natalie. And I think the domestic abuse had been going on quite a long time, you know, from what you'll see, what his dad says later. You know, he would start appearing with fat lips, you know, a bit like just listening to them talking, you think, oh my God, it's just the same red flags, if you like, as there are with, I don't think there's any difference. You know, the red flags are the same. You know, people coming with injuries, black eyes, fat lips, or walked into a door, or, you know, making excuses for the injuries, the visible injuries that they have. And this really is what was going on with Kasey for quite a long time before he sadly was stabbed several times by this horrible woman. You know, now, I don't know if alcohol was involved or drugs. She was very hard-faced, you know, shouldn't say that maybe. Well, say shouldn't say that. I am saying it. She does look hard-faced, but I suppose most people do in their mugshots, don't they? You know, she doesn't look like the kindest person you've ever met, does she? And yeah, she did it to this young man. She stabbed him many, many times. And poor Kasey, he did survive for a little while. He had 2 heart attacks on the operating table while they were trying to save his life. And he did survive for a few days, but eventually, very unfortunately, he succumbed to his injuries. So so it went to court. She was prosecuted for murder, and she was found guilty. And her sentence was 18 years. 18 years. Why only 18 years? You know, this boy, I think he was 24 when he died, or 23, 24. He had years ahead of him. She took all those years from him. She not only from him, she took all those years away from his family. She took all those years away from society. You know, Kasey would, you know, seems like he was a positive influence. Happy-go-lucky, well, at least until he met this twonk he was anyway. And all that was taken away, and you know, his parents will never see his children. He'll never get married. He'll never have children. I don't know what he saw in her. Probably, you know, a lot of young men like older women because there's a fascination there. It's quite, you know, a part of it is an sex reason, of course. Just as a lot of women like older. This relationship, it seems like it was toxic for a long time. Now, that's not necessarily just because of the age difference. You know, Natalie might be have been toxic with anyone, whether they were her age or not. Or it may be that because he was younger, you know, he was more vulnerable to a woman like this. That's a possibility too, I suppose, isn't it? So, you know, anyway, let me know what you think. Do you think difference in age matters, or do you think it doesn't matter at all? Either way, whether it's a man and a woman with a man, or, you know, of course, we should remember same-sex relationships. Quite often there's age differences in those relationships. You know, what do you think? Do you think age difference matters? Do you think this is a question, this tragedy that happened, the age difference is partly responsible, or do you think the age difference has got nothing to do with it, and Natalie is just a psycho and it wouldn't have mattered? Or do you think there was a sort of a certain amount of abuse because he was so much younger? I think if this was a 40-odd-year-old man and a sort of 18-year-old girl, because when they met, I think she was 41, Natalie, and he was about 18. If it would have been the other way around, like a 41-year-old man and a teenage girl, I think we would have been, thinking that the man had taken advantage of the girl. Do we feel the same about a woman? Did she take advantage of his youth and his naivety? And the sentence that she got of 18 years, is that because she's a woman? Why did she only get 18 years? For murder? And I mean, it was pure murder. It's like she stabbed him several times, and it was a culmination of years of domestic abuse. I'm sure if that would have been a man, they would have got a bigger sentence. Rightly so. To me, I would be expecting a sentence of at least 24, 25 years in a case like this. So I'm quite shocked that she's only received 18 years. Life sentence, obviously she may not even get out after the 18 years. But so let's have a look to see what Merseyside police said about it at the time. Woman sentenced to life in prison for the murder of Kasey Anderson. So they always say, life in prison, but of course life, there's a difference between life 18 years or 40. Sometimes life sentences are less than that. It's not life, is it? I think this is a very light sentence, especially in view of the history of domestic abuse. So a woman has been handed a life sentence in prison for the murder of Kasey Anderson following an incident of domestic violence in Croxteth earlier this year. Natalie Bennett, 47, of Carr Lane East, was sentenced at Liverpool Crown Court on Friday the 10th of November after a trial found her guilty of murder last month. And this is 2023. This happened. So she's a couple of years into her sentence, or at least a year anyway. So she was handed a life imprisonment with a minimum term of 18 years. So Kasey, aged 24, from Croxteth, was stabbed around 6:30 p.m. on Carr Lane East on Saturday the 12th of March. And despite being taken to hospital with injuries to his chest and his leg, Kasey sadly passed away in hospital on Friday the 31st of March. So yeah, he didn't die instantly. His family had to decide. Sorry, this is going to make me upset, because when you see his dad later, you will get upset. They had to make the decision to turn his life support machine off. That is just the most horrible decision to have to make, isn't it? Bad enough what he'd gone through, and then they were the ones who had to decide. Sorry, I've lost my composure a little bit now there. So, following an investigation, detectives were able to prove that Bennett used a knife to stab her boyfriend Kasey during following a domestic incident. Now, the thing is, she wasn't messing around, was she? She stabbed him in the chest. You stab someone in the chest, you're going for the heart, aren't you? She wasn't messing around. And his leg, and just a little word of warning, I hope you're never in a position where you think, I just want to stab someone a little bit, but I don't want to kill them, and you think you can stab someone in the leg. A lot of the main arteries are in the leg. It's a very dangerous place everywhere's a dangerous place, for fuck's sake. But when you can't say that she was half-hearted in her attempt to kill him, she stabbed him many, many times and stabbed him in the chest and leg. Kasey's dad, Graham Anderson, issued a tribute today on behalf of his family. We're going to look at him talking, and we're going to look at Graham speaking, and Also, Kasey's sister speaking. Kasey brought so much joy into our lives and he will forever be missed. He was a huge part of everyone's life. He made everyone laugh and he had time for everyone. We'd like to thank Merseyside Police for all their hard work, time, effort and dedication, along with their emotional support for putting his case together and helping us on our journey of justice for Kasey. We have repeatedly said time after time, we could not have been surrounded by more helpful people. Please, if there is anyone out there fighting a battle with domestic abuse or mental health issues, man or woman, stand up tall and be your voice. Don't leave it too late. Speaking up is not a weakness. It is the biggest strength you can show. Please don't let your families go through what we are going through. And there he is, smiley boy. So Detective Inspector Ben Wayman added this was a vicious and calculated attack by Bennett that sadly resulted in the death of a young man. Our thoughts remain with Kasey's family at this point, and we hope this sentencing brings them some comfort. Domestic abuse can happen to anyone at any time, regardless of gender, age, sexuality, and I would say ethnicity as well there, I would add to that. And social class, don't think that, it seems to be more prevalent in what you might call the working classes, but it's not exclusive. Anyone can suffer, literally anyone could suffer domestic abuse. It's important for people to recognise when it is happening to them because it doesn't happen overnight. So this is the other thing as well. People will often say, oh, why didn't they just leave? Why didn't they do this? Why didn't they do that? But these things don't happen overnight. They're insidious. Have it start off with maybe, I don't know, just a playful slap or a push. Or, telling someone not to wear, oh, what are you wearing that for? Or why are you going there? Why are you talking to them? Why are you doing this? It starts off with little things. It doesn't, you don't just fall off a cliff and you're in domestic abuse situation. It happens poco a poco, as we say in Spanish, bit by bit. And before you know it, you are literally in it and you're thinking, how the hell am I going to get out of this? And bearing in mind that you're probably still in love with that person as well. And then there'll be time, in between the times when they're really horrible to you, they'll be really nice to you and you'll be thinking, oh, they don't, and I'm so sorry, it'll never happen again. Blah, de, blah, de, blah, don't know what came over me. And in the end, you just believe, you just don't know which way to turn. So it's not as easy as just leaving. So, the important thing, though, is to try and talk to somebody. If you don't feel you can talk to your family or your friends, we're going to look at some numbers later specifically for men and some organisations, because what his family have done is they have, dedicated themselves to helping people, especially men who are suffering domestic abuse, because it is a big, sort of untalked about subject, isn't it? So domestic abuse is a complex issue and can take many forms, including psychological, financial, sexual, emotional, and physical. There is support available from both the police and our partners. So even the police have got better with it, haven't they? They're still pretty crapo in lots of, depending on the police force. But I do think they've got better. And we want to raise awareness of the support that is available to anyone who is or has experienced domestic abuse or been affected by it. All reports are treated seriously, they will be investigated sensitively, and we will work with our partners to offer support and keep victims safe. We understand that every domestic incident is unique, and we will do everything we can to ensure perpetrators are brought to justice. So the victims of this terrible and unreported crime are protected, and their needs are put first. Merseyside police would also appeal to families and friends to keep an eye out for signs that someone might be a victim of domestic abuse. Sometimes victims are unable to contact the police, and that's why it's so important that people around them who suspect something is going on can do it on their behalf. And then they give you these, this is Liverpool, of course, Merseyside, but probably most police forces nowadays, there'll be a way where you can report anonymously even domestic abuse. You can always contact the Samaritans. You can always contact, now this Paul Lavelle Foundation, we're going to look at this. And this is an agency that's been working closely with Kasey's family. And then, of course, you've got Refuge, which I think is quite a well-known agency, but would men think to go to Refuge? And Women's Aid? I think even because it's called Women's Aid. Maybe they should think about changing that name, or maybe they want to make it just for women. I don't know. But National Domestic Violence Helpline, these are all UK numbers, but whatever country you're in, there'll be organisations you can. Anyway, so that's what the police had to say about it at the time. Now we're going to have a look at this BBC article. Now, this is his sister. This is Kasey's sister. My murdered brother hid abuse by an older girlfriend. We're going to have a look at it's just a brief clip from her interview. And I think it's she says, my brother was ashamed he was a victim. That's it. He was ashamed. That's the difference. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure some women are ashamed, feel it's their fault because their abuser will try and make them think it's their fault, won't they? But I think it is worse for a man, of course, because you see, it's an actual attack on his own manliness.
Boys don't speak how girls do, whereas I think they have the laugh and a joke, but that part of it where girls are very, very open with their best friends, but boys aren't really like that. And I think he felt really ashamed of what he was going through, someone could overpower him that much. He just the words never ever come out of his mouth.
Yeah. So although they knew the family, poor Molly, I hope she's okay. I hope the whole family is okay, and that what they're having to deal with, it's awful. So he never said it. He just couldn't. He never talked to them about it. They sort of knew in a way because they could see that it was having fat lips and signs of abuse. But he would never talk about it, and she just said the words never came out of his mouth. So he never said, my girlfriend is abusing me. So the sister of a man who was murdered by his abusive partner says she believes he did not speak out because he was ashamed of being a victim. Kasey was 24 when he was stabbed to death by Natalie Bennett, who was 47 at the time. For fuck's sake, she's 47. She's a mother herself. She's got children. And she did this to this young lad. Honest to God, she is vile, foul woman. Kasey's sister Molly said her family had been at a loss of how to help her brother, who would make excuses for Bennett's behaviour towards him. I mean, it's just the same, isn't it? The thing is, it doesn't matter if it's a man or a woman. The symptoms are the same. The way people cope with it is the same. The way the families react. So like she said, her family had been at a loss of how to help her brother, who would make excuses for her behaviour towards him. I think he felt really ashamed of what he was going through, that someone could have power over him that much. And there she is with it. He's a handsome boy. That woman, what she did, taking this boy away from his family and taking his life away. So it never came out of his mouth, I am getting abused or she is hurting me. he would make excuses and say, I walked into a door. I mean, that's like, it's a cliche, isn't it? So many people that have said that to me, that I found out later were actually being abused. I fell off the bike. I was drunk. He never said the words, I am getting abused, she is hitting me. Even though we'd seen it with our own eyes, he would still defend her. And this is what makes it difficult. You know, I know people like parents of women who've been abused. And then, of course, you know, there's always a big bust up, isn't it? And then they go to their parents or to their family. And then the family all hate the person because they've told them all these things about them. And then they go back to them for whatever reason, you know, and it sounds like this, you know, it may be a man with a woman abuser, but it's all the same symptoms, isn't it? It's all the same story. Doesn't matter whether it's man, woman, or whatever combination, the symptoms are the. So Kasey from Croxteth in Liverpool was 19 when he first started a relationship with Anderson, who was more than twice his age. No, he's what do you mean Anderson? No, she was Bennett. God, they do get, this is the BBC, for fuck's sake, BBC. Can't you afford a bloody someone who to check what you're putting out there? So, yeah, because it says he was 19 when he first started a relationship with Bennett, not Anderson, who was more than twice his age. Molly said he was very naive and had only had one previous relationship. He was so young, she said. This older woman who's got a lot of experience, she's lived her whole life. When you think of how wise you are then compared to a 19-year-old boy, that's where the power comes from. And Molly recalled how over time her brother became more and more withdrawn, and how she started to notice him change. You know, this is what happens, isn't it? He stopped talking, he stopped looking after himself. His hygiene went down. You know, it makes you, were they drinking? Were they taking substances? You know, he was 24 when she stabbed him to death and she was 47. So that's 23-year-old age difference. I mean, it's not the age difference, is it? I mean, I'm sure she could have been 23 years older and they could have had a lovely life. Or do you think the age difference is crucial in this? Is that what gave her the power, like his sister says? He wasn't going out with his friends. He wasn't going out of the house. He wasn't communicating. He wasn't laughing. And then the physical signs as well. We knew what was going on, but it was trying to get him to admit it. We were at a loss. She described our family and friends tried to talk to Kasey, but it was crazy the power she held over him. It was a lot of talking to him, but screaming and shouting as well to try and get through to him. There was nothing that was getting through to him. His soul was completely lost. I mean, you know, when you look at him and he looks sort of all happy and smiley, and look at her eyes. Oh my God. You know, talk about the eyes being the window to the soul. You know, she just looks horrible, doesn't she? We were completely lost. It was like, what can we do? We're at a point where we were like, he's got to make his own choices. And it's true, you can't make somebody do something. Just can't. God. So on the 12th of March 2023 at 6:30 in the evening, police were called to Carr Lane East in Croxteth, and Kasey had been stabbed in the chest and leg and was critically injured. He was taken to hospital where he died 3 weeks later. He was arrested for what police described as a vicious and calculated attack, and later that year he was found guilty of Kasey's murder and she was jailed. Oh, look at him there. He just looks like a little kid there, doesn't he? He probably was. I imagine that's been taken a little while before. So Molly is now calling for more awareness about male victims of domestic violence and urged men going through similar experiences to her brother to speak out. Don't be afraid, she said. There's nothing to be ashamed of if someone is abusing you. It's not your fault, it's them. Speaking up is not that you're weak. It's the strongest thing that you could ever do. Because if Kasey had had the strength to open his mouth and say what he was going through, I would not be in the position that I'm in right now. And it's true. Don't think you're weak speaking up about domestic abuse, whoever you are. That is strength. That is strength to speak up. Gosh, so it's quite traumatic, isn't it? Just read it. God knows how the poor family are getting on, because just reading about it, and it's not, it's not a case. It's not my life. It's a case, isn't it? But it's still very, very emotional, because it is real life, isn't it? Okay, so we're going to look at what we were talking about before, which is this, the Big Life group. We're going to look at how Kasey's death is at least having some positive impact, because the family are determined that they'll be able to save other people from this horrible situation. I'm on the Big Life group in honour of Kasey, raising awareness of male domestic abuse. Very important. So at just 24 years old, Kasey Anderson was murdered by his girlfriend. His death has left those who loved him heartbroken and dealing with a loss they could never have prepared for. His family, who fought tirelessly to bring him back from a dangerous relationship, now fight in his memory. They want to ensure that no other family endures the same pain in silence. Through their grief, Kasey's family found the strength to share their experience, and it's a story that has since ignited vital conversations about male domestic abuse. Last year, the Big Life team in Liverpool had the immense privilege of spending time with them, listening to their story and learning about Kasey. We walked through his local park and we saw where he would go fishing. Sorry, I know I'm going to get upset. I know I am. Sat in the memorial garden his father had built opposite the house, and we visited Goodison Park, the home of his beloved football team. So that's Everton, isn't it? That's the Everton, because Liverpool is Anfield, isn't it? So he was an Everton fan. We cried, we laughed, we listened. Working with Liverpool County Council and the Paul Lavelle Foundation. That's a very important foundation. I'm going to have a look at that as well in a minute. We created a video documenting the story of Kasey. It showed who he was, his devastating death, and how his murder has impacted those around him. Let's just Google this actually while we're... Oh dear. Why can't people just be now nice to each other? For God's sake, what is this? Why have you got to be abusive, like domestic? We created a video documenting the story of Kasey. It showed who he was, his devastating death, and how his murder has impacted those who loved him. And this footage was used as part of the Liverpool Domestic Abuse Strategy launch, designed to raise crucial awareness, and it also aims to challenge perceptions around domestic abuse. Oh, here it is. Since the video's first release, the Paul Lavelle Foundation. Let's have a look. So this is a charity that was set up in memory of their friend, Paul Lavelle, who was sadly taken from them in cruel circumstances in May 2017. After Paul's loss, a large group of us, we have a network of 50 mates. That's how sad it is, because he had all those mates. Anyway, we decided to honour Paul, set up the charity to raise awareness of domestic abuse towards men. So if you or anyone else that maybe you know is suffering, this is in the UK, of course, I presume, they could probably give you advice wherever you contacted them from. You can get in touch with them. You've got general inquiries, referral funds, information on male domestic abuse, recognising the signs, the reasons that males do not speak out. You know, shame is a big thing, I think, and lack of resources. And of course, protect their children, religious beliefs. They're in denial. Gosh. So it's a very interesting website and important. So if you are a man suffering, because this is specifically for males, a man suffering domestic abuse, or you've got a mate maybe who you think, oh, there's something funny going on there, you know, look, these are the symptoms: afraid or anxious to please their partner, going along with everything their partner says or does, checking often with their partner to report where they are and what they're doing, receive frequent harassing phone calls from your partner. They worry about their partner's temper, jealousy, or possessiveness. Have frequent injuries with the excuse of accidents, frequently have to miss school, work, or social occasions. Dressing clothing designed to hide bruises or scars, i.e. long sleeves. If they're restricted from seeing family or friends, or they rarely go out in public without their partner, or have limited access to money, credit cards, or the car. Now, I think all those symptoms could apply to men or women, anyone. You know, so these are signs. I mean, it's difficult, isn't it? Yeah, these frequent injuries. I think when people, you know, regularly have black eyes and stuff like that, bruises, it's awful, isn't it, really? Because you don't know for certain. You'd also be, you know, you'd be wary of saying, like, if it was your friend or your family, you'd be wary of saying to them, oh, is your partner hitting you, whether it be a man or a woman, you know, because you know that you're likely going to fall out with them, you know, because they're probably going to say, oh, I've heard that said as well. Oh, you've never liked them, and say, no, it's not a question of whether I like them or not, but I've over the years, you know, actually seen my friends' partners with other.
He was amazing. We was born 2 years apart, and we loved each other all the world. And he was just so bubbly, and growing up with him was perfect. If I had any word for it,
he was always fun-loving. He was just such a happy, fun-loving kid to be around. Just dead smiley. He just got on with everyone. There was no one that didn't love Kasey. I've never seen someone go from such a happy person to dark. No fun. There was no singing and dancing. They weren't like mixing with the kids as friends. Didn't see them. Pushed the family away.
Then we started seeing them, big lips, big fat lip, black eyes. They were out there where his eye was closed. What's going on, Kasey? What's happened there? And he just come out with excuses like, oh, walked into a door, didn't I? Or I'd had a fight with someone. But we knew, everyone knew it was there because...
Right, now for
Kasey
some reason I can hear this video, but I can't actually see it, so I don't know why that is. So, why is that? Let me try refreshing the page. Ah, there it is. Okay, let's watch the video. I'll tell you, it reminds me of there when he's singing and dancing. You know the videos of Jay Slater that we see, who's always laughing and so this was him before he got involved with this witch. This was Kasey. He was always dancing. He was always happy. He was just a typical teenage boy. And then he got involved with the 41-year-old witch. And yeah, unfortunately, over years was abused.
He was amazing. We was born 2 years apart and we loved each other all the world, and he was just so bubbly, and growing up with him was perfect if I had any word for it.
He was always fun-loving. He was just such a happy, fun-loving kid to be around, just dead smiley. Just got on with everyone. There was no one that didn't love Kasey. I've never seen someone go from such a happy person to dark. No fun. There was no singing and dancing. They weren't like mixing with the kids as friends. Didn't see them. Pushed the family away.
Then we started seeing them, big lips, big fat lip, black eyes. They were out there where his eye was closed. What's going on, Kasey? What's happened there? And he just come out with excuses like, oh, walked into a door, didn't I? Or I'd had a fight with someone. But we knew, everyone knew it was there because...
Do you know, listening to this family talking is like, as I say, every case that we could ever cover, and it's about domestic abuse. These are, whether it be a man, a woman, or whatever, these are the familiar stories, aren't they? You know, trying to get someone to talk. Why has he got this great big black eye? Why has he got fat lips? Trying to help and feeling totally useless, really, hopeless, that you cannot help the person you love because they're just not, you know, because if they're not prepared to admit what's going on, what can you do?
Kasey wouldn't let no one do that to him. The dreaded day came where he stabbed him. He had 2 heart attacks on the operating table, survived, lived for another 21 days before. We had to decide about turning his life support machine off. Broke me heart. I'll never see him grow up, have children. She took all that away. She took his life, and she took his life away from his family.
Yeah.
Men need something to come forward to. You're not weak to come forward and try and get help. It could save your life, not end up like my son.
$18 doesn't seem enough to me, I'm sorry.
Look at his eye, Josh.
Proper picture.
Yeah, proper picture.
It's got proper Luke chin.
Look around.
Look around.
So, you know, if you're in actual Merseyside, this is a phone number, but this Paul Lavelle Foundation, I think they would point you in the right direction wherever you were, because, you know, they will have, you know, details of other places as well, not just in Liverpool. So this is a problem all over the world, but it's an unrecognised problem. You know, I think, you know, it's bad enough with domestic violence against women. You feel like that's not talked about enough. Can there ever be enough? But there's another couple of things that I want to talk about that apart from this as well. Another one, things that are definitely not talked about and people don't know where to turn. Domestic violence against men is a massive thing that I think is not talked about enough, not acknowledged enough. And that's why men don't feel like they've got anywhere to turn. And the other thing is domestic violence from children towards their parents. And, you know, it's been especially brought forward. I haven't been covering like the Southport inquiry because I just don't think I can face going through listening to all those details again about those little girls and how they died. So, you know, it's too upsetting. But I mean, I've been following it, but I haven't done videos about it. You know, a lot of people blaming his parents, but I think his parents probably just didn't know where to turn. You know, they were terrified of him. And, well, I say they didn't know where to turn. I mean, they did report things. But I think people don't know how to cope with domestic violence of children against parents. The parents don't know how to cope with it. Because also it's very difficult to phone the police about your own child. You know, you don't want them to go to prison. You don't know what to do. You think you can save them, but you know what? You can't. You literally can't, because once they start having mental health issues and start getting violent towards you, you know, you need professional help. You can't do it on your own. You can't. But I think a lot of parents try and do it on their own. So there are two things that I think aren't addressed properly at all. And as I say, gender violence against women is bad enough, but I think at least that is talked about. But gender violence the other way around, against men, and also just domestic violence from children towards parents. There's been a few big cases lately. You know, there was the case in London of, what was his name, Nicholas, wasn't it, who was going to do a school shooting, but, you know, not luckily for his mum, but she woke up and realised that he was wandering around with a gun, and she stopped him. So he shot her, killed his sister, killed his brother, went out to do this school shooting, but luckily was apprehended by the police. So, you know, although that was a disaster for that family where they were annihilated, he didn't get to the junior school to shoot all the children that he'd been planning to do. You know, these young people, so what I'm saying, these are young people doing it, and the violence starts against their family members often, doesn't it? And then it expands out, and that's what happened with that Southport killer that I'm not going to say his name. You know, he went off and killed those children, poor things. But he could just as easily have killed his family. In fact, I think he tried on several occasions. The family were terrified of him. So what's the answer? You know, that's what needs to be addressed, I think. I think we'll just watch this video one more time, because it is a nice video to remember this young lad.
He was amazing. We was born 2 years apart, and we loved each other all the world, and he was just so bubbly, and growing up with him was perfect. I felt anywhere for it.
He was always fun-loving. He was just such a happy, fun-loving kid to be around, just dead smiley. Just got on with everyone. There was no one that didn't love Kasey. I've never seen someone go from such a happy person to dull, no fun. There was no singing and dancing. They weren't like mixing with the kids as friends. Didn't see them. Push the family away.
Then we started seeing them, big lips, big fat lip, black eyes. They were out there where his eye was closed. What's going on, Kasey? What's happened there? And he just come out with excuses like, oh, walked into a door, didn't I? Or I'd had a fight with someone. Well, we knew, everyone knew it was there, because Kasey wouldn't let no one do that to him. The dreaded day came where she stabbed him. He had 2 heart attacks on the operating table, survived, lived for another 21 days before we had to decide about turning his life support machine off.
Hey.
Broke me heart. I'll never see him grow up, have children. She took all that away. She took his life and she took his life away from his family. Men need something to come forward to. You're not weak to come forward and try and get help. They could save your life, not end up like my son.
Yeah, bless. Ay.
Look at his eye, Josh.
Proper picture.
Yeah, proper picture.
It's got proper Luke chin.
Look around.
Look around.
So now I have put this horrible witch in the hellhole. I'm just trying to work out how to upload it so we can see it. Hang on, maybe it hasn't downloaded yet. Let's see. Can I do it like that? Right, so I'm going to take that down. Let's have a look at her in the hellhole. Oh God, what an awful, awful woman, isn't she? And I'd just like to say, if you feel sorry for her family, because she's got children as well. I don't know how many, it's at least one. Not much fun for them, is it? Knowing that their mum is a murderess. So, I do feel for them as well. Let's see. So, she's in the hellhole, this horrible woman. Natalie Bennett. Adios, Natalie, or at least for 18 years. I think she's had a very light sentence. She should count herself lucky, shouldn't she? But anyway, she's in the hellhole. At least for 18 years. Minimum. No, maybe she won't be released after 18 years. It all depends. We don't, 4 kids, oh my God. So we do not know, if we went forward, she's done a year or something already. So if we went forward 17 years, we don't know what the situation will be then. Will sentences be stricter, more lenient? Will probation people, when she comes up for parole, what will the climate be, if you like, then? We don't know. Or it'll be in 18 years, whether it'll be the sort of political climate that will look favourably on her, or the sort of political climate that will think, no, piss off, you're going to do another 10 years or whatever. We just don't know. So we can't look into the future. But for now, at least, she literally is in the hellhole. But she's got to live with it. It doesn't matter how long she's in prison, really. For all these cases that we talk about, does not matter how long they're in prison, because there'll come a day when they have to face, judgment, literal judgment, when their lives are over. I wonder how they feel. You think, I know, like psychopathic murderers, like serial killers, I don't know if they ever really worry about their soul, because they don't probably even believe in an afterlife or anything like that. But there will be people out there that have murdered people, maybe like her, that when it comes to the day, you know, that she knows that something, she's got moving on to the next world, how will she feel? And whose face does she see when she closes her eyes at night? You know, I hope she's suffering some sort of purgatory, apart from the, you know, the judge's sentence and that kind of judicial karma, if you like, or justice. There are other kinds of justice, aren't they? You know, is she resting easy at night? Does his little face haunt her, this poor young lad, who she must have loved at one? Well, you know, did she love him, or you know, what was a fucking 41-year-old woman doing, starting up a relationship with an 18, 19-year-old boy? You know, that is ever so young, isn't it? I mean, even if he was at least over 20, I don't know. It just seems so young, you know, and she should, you know, anyway. So she did, but she did it. Anyway, she started that relationship and they had a lovely relationship, and, you know, people do make relationships work with big age differences. But it makes you wonder with this, is that what gave her the power over him? Because when he was young, you know, young men are a bit fascinated with older women. You know, it's an sex thing, isn't it? It's like, especially in these days and times, is quite common, isn't it, to see older women with younger men. Whereas years ago, you wouldn't have seen that. You would have only seen older men with younger women. So I don't know. There's a lot of lessons there, aren't there? So, you know, we worry about our daughters. I mean, I haven't got a daughter, but if I had a daughter, I'd be worried about her. But we also need to worry about our sons. You know, all our children, we can only try give them the best lessons we can in life. And, you know, as I've said before, I feel like I failed miserably in most of that, but I don't know. I don't think my son would put up with a woman physically abusing him. I definitely don't think that he would put up with that. You know, but then why did this boy? Because he won't have been brought up to take physical abuse from women, you know. As I say, though, it's so insidious. It doesn't happen overnight. Probably they were together for quite a long time, had a great time, and then gradually this abuse crept in bit by bit, like just as it does with anybody. You know, domestic abuse is insidious, isn't it? So, you know, what's the answer? Just try and get people to talk, I suppose. What more can you do? You can't live people's lives for them, even your own, you know, your children. You just can't, you know, even though you might know that there's some abuse going on. You can only try and talk to them, but at the end of the day, you can't make them leave, can you? So, okay, so I say my heart goes out to this family and, you know, this poor boy. Hope he's resting easy now. I hope thank you for caring about this boy. Thank you for listening. It's a big lesson to learn, but I really wanted to make it, to show, because I know most of the cases I talk about of domestic abuse or anything like that, they are cases where it may be a man doing something to a woman. So I wanted to show that it happens the other way. And I have got a playlist, actually, Women Who Kill. So there's quite a few videos on there. So although they might be in the minority, it doesn't mean to say it doesn't happen. So it's a lesson that we need to learn, not to what's the word? If somebody does confide in us, maybe a man might confide in us and tell us that he's suffering some domestic abuse. You know, we've got to know how to cope with that as well, and, you know, let them know the steps that they should take, because otherwise, as in this case, it ended in the death of a young man. Okay, I'll see you really soon in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. You may have noticed, if you watched this from the beginning, I've got a new introduction video. Let me know what you think. I'll see you really soon in the next video. Here's the dog now. She always comes up. As soon as I start saying, I'll see you really soon in the next video, you're there, aren't you? Let's let everybody have a look at how beautiful you are. There she is. She just came round because she heard me say that. I'll see you really soon in the next video. And until then, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And may your God go with you.